just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right. This is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 96. Mike Biseglia, Alex Benezowitz, but still no Alex, as he is on his honeymoon in Hawaii, having the time of his life. And I love that when he's in Hawaii right now, the Knicks just keep on losing. They did get one win, so the Knicks are 2-0 against the Rockets this year, but they are 13-17 overall on the season, and I'm loving every minute of it. And because Alex is out, we are having guest hosts come in. And I wanted to bring in Big Zoo, Edar Zuman, who works at WFAN as a producer, as a overall talent over there that really knows how to shake his ass and do some good stuff. Also, if you're a Jets fan, check out his Jets podcast, Time to Jets. So Big Zoo, thank you for co-hosting and coming on Bad Weather Fans today. What's going on, man? And I should mention as well for everybody listening, we are recording this before the Knicks play the Detroit Pistons because Big Zoo is working the morning show over at WFAN, and I was like, I can't do this from 11 to midnight. I'd be too much of an asshole. So what's up, man? How you doing?
Bro, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you helping me out with that sleep schedule for sure. But dude, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys. You and Alex do a great job over here. Alex, enjoy the honeymoon, man. Hopefully it's going great over there. Shout out to you and the missus. But bro, it's been a long time, man. It's good to see you again.
It has been a long time. When we worked at the station together, how much did our paths even cross? Like, and you have to, like, forgive me now because it's been a year and a half and my memory started to get a little shot over there from being at CBS Sports Radio. I wasn't at WFAN. I didn't get that privilege. But how long were we together? Was it like a year and a half? What's the timeline? I left
about a year and a half. I got there in 2018, beginning of 2018.
I remember those early days, and now I'm turning on the TV and like you're on the sports network and you're twerking.
Yeah, man. Sometimes you gotta shake your ass a little bit. That's what the people want.
and you do a great job with it. And you are a big Knicks fan, right? You're not a Nets fan like myself.
No, sir.
How old are you, Zoo? Well, I'll just ask that. I'll be inappropriate. How old are you?
That's fair. I don't care. I actually like that because I've always been young for my grade, young for my age, I guess, how I look. But I'm 26, just turned it a couple of weeks ago. December 6th, 95 is the birthday.
Okay.
Anybody, I guess, looking for my information.
Yeah, happy birthday early. And hopefully there's a Nick loss coming on those days as well. I'm all about that. So you're 26. So what are your like early Nick memories that got you hooked on the orange and blue?
Honestly, bro, I gotta be honest. It's tough. It's tough because I look at my early memories as a Knicks fan, and the reason that I'm a Knicks fan is just going to games with my dad. I don't have great memories like winning wise as a kid because we're talking about Michael Sweetney, Michael Doliak, teams like that. Charlie Ward was my man. I love Charlie Ward, but at the end of the day, when Charlie Ward is the guy that the kids love, the team's probably not that good.
Right. Fair enough.
But that just kept evolving. My dad unfortunately passed away when I was 13. So, I mean, that's not really why I continued being a fan, but that's when I kind of became a big fan. And that was around the time when Melo was coming to the Knicks.
Right.
I wasn't a huge fan of the trade at the time, if I got to be honest with you. I hated what we gave up. But it was fun having Melo here, especially when I was in high school. So that was always cool. But that Eastern Conference final loss, or not Eastern Conference final, damn, I wish that second round playoff loss to the Pacers felt like NBA finals loss. But I mean, that was about my peak of memory with the Knicks up until last season when it felt like we were turning things around, and here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how fast it's changed from a team that was, a 4 seed, home court advantage now a year later, and here are the Knicks at And again, we'll see what happens with the Pistons, and that's just going to be a weird game just because of
Better
all
be
the
a
COVID.
win.
It's also all the COVID protocols too. It's like all these guys that aren't playing. You know, Detroit does have some young players. I don't know who's exactly playing for them, but point I'm trying to make is, you know, a year later, this team is 13-17, and just the fall from grace from where they were that really started. I mean, let's be honest. When you went to Atlanta, they have not been the same ever since that moment. And for people that don't know, Big Zoo went, you know, through WFAN or whatever, or the morning show. You ended up going to the Knicks Hawks games in Atlanta, and I don't think the Knicks have been the same since.
Yeah, I feel a little bit responsible for this. If I'm going to be, you know, if I'm going to be fair with myself, I got to take a little responsibility, right? It's been since that road trip. I mean, listen, they lost the game 1 in New York, but that was a good game. They won game 2, but that game 3 and that game 4 was uncompetitive. And being in that arena, like, you're a away fan, you kind of want to get into it. But you just have to sit there and take your arrows when you're getting your ass whooped. Like, we got them whooped in those 2 games. And I was just looking at it. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with this team. And you look at Randall. I mean, listen, the guy is a good basketball player. He does a lot of things well, but he has limitations in his game. And I don't know why teams weren't forcing him as much into shots, forcing him to go with his right or to go with his left, because that's not really something that he does. I mean, I don't know why that didn't happen last year, but the Hawks decided, hey, this is right here. Let's do it defensively. They do it. Start shutting him down a little bit. And now all of a sudden the rest of the league, I guess, caught on. And that's where we're at this point with Jules. But that regression, in my opinion, is the biggest reasoning for this, where we are right now. And we can get to Kemba, we can get to Fournier, we can get to RJ being inconsistent, but at the end of the day, it comes down to Julius Randle just not being that guy right now. And unlike other people, I'm not trying to trade him. I'm not on that bandwagon because honestly, what are you going to get back that's significantly better than Julius Randle, unless you're including 3 other players or a ton of picks.
Yeah, or if you're going into rebuild mode and then like a contender, for example, you know, if you were to deal him to a team like, you know, like the Bulls, for example, or let's say a contending team, and then you're looking to get draft pick back, but then you're going in a whole different direction where you're not looking for now. Right. Then you're just, okay, you just admit rebuild mode. Here it is. Before we talk more Knicks, I am curious though, when you were in Atlanta, so the Knicks crowd, that game 2, people talk about it. That was the highlight of the season, the Obi Top and alley-oop, the place that, you know, erupted, the whole deal. What are crowds like in Atlanta? Is it loud? Is it still have is it the same? Because I'm going to stroke the Knick ego here, the fan ego, because your team sucks. So I'm going to give you a bone here.
Thank you.
Is the Atlanta crowd, did it feel energy? Did it feel enthusiastic, or anywhere comparable to what it's like when MSG is going?
Late arriving crowd, I'll say that. I mean, that might be just something that was going on then, but it was a late arriving crowd. Honestly, early on, not a lot of noise, but the game was a little bit more competitive at that point. When it got away from them, then you started to hear people get a little more confident, pump their chest out a little bit.
Right.
But the arena, the people who were running the music there, the PA system and all that, they seemed like they wanted a very, very hyped up crowd. And the energy that they were putting out there, in my opinion, wasn't being matched by the crowd at all. And if they were getting to that place, and being in a city like Atlanta, where you feel like it's just a hype capital of the country and maybe the world.
Yeah.
But they just didn't bring it like I thought they would. And I think that they have a lot more to go, and they probably can get there as a crowd and as a fan base, but they're definitely evolving with the new generation right now for sure. That's something that I noticed with a lot of the people that were fans there. Not a lot of what you would call old school Hawk fans.
Interesting. Okay, I want to just get that out there. We'll give a little Knicks positivity. Now back to the team and the roster, and then we'll get you to talk about the Nets. I can't wait to hear all of that, which has just been a bizarre season on that front. Is RJ Barrett, is he what he is? How disappointed are you? Or should people start to, you know, kind of relax a little bit and say he's a good player, but these expectations like he's going to be a superstar just aren't fair?
I think the latter is true there. And I've kind of always felt that way about RJ. I've had a weird kind of look at him ever since he's been drafted, where I've said to myself and anybody who's willing to listen to me that I think he's more fit to be a guy like, in terms of where he is on the team, of Tayshaun Prince, of Rip Hamilton, somebody in that kind of mold, where maybe they make an all-star team, 2 all-star teams. They could do one thing really, really well, whether that be defend and, get out on the fast break, or, be a shooter like Rip. I don't know if he'll develop into that now, but I think maybe a mix of both could be something where he could be. And the idea that he's a superstar, like, I just don't see it. I don't see him being a perennial all-star. He doesn't have the consistency. I don't think he'll ever develop that, if you want me to be completely honest. He's a guy who probably in his best seasons averages 23 points, maybe 7 boards and 5 assists, and that's his absolute best season. That's a good season. It's an all-star year.
Sure.
But I don't think that, that's not what his career numbers are going to be. That's not what he's going to look like every year in and year out. And people have way too high of expectations for him and think that he's going to be like the prince who was promised, is what I saw SNY post early in the year. And it's like, come on, y'all. Like, let's take a step back. Let's breathe. And let's actually look at the guy for what he is, because you don't need to put unwarranted expectations on a dude and, start to hold him to that standard, because RJ shouldn't be held to that standard that like Michael Jordan got held to, or that, these guys who are on the come up that are actually going to be superstars got held to. He's just not that guy.
Right. Yeah, no, that's the beauty of being a Nets fan. There's no expectations locally. Nobody cares. It's only Evan Roberts spouting on the air about it, and nobody, you don't have to hear about it. But
you got Keith McPherson now too.
That's true. And Keith, yeah, shout out to Keith doing an awesome job late nights on the Fan. So I guess there is more of a, a Nets presence, but it does, I'm saying that a little tongue in cheek, because there is a ton of pressure on the Nets and the Nets organization this year to win a championship. You might not feel it as much from local New Yorkers who pretend the team doesn't exist, but there is a lot of expectation on them and for the Nets to go out there and do well. I love that Kyrie is going to play in half the games. I know there's some people that are like, this is the Nets are frauds. The Nets have no backbone. And I'm like, well, the Nets are going to want to win a championship. So if you thought the Nets were just going to be good people in the beginning of the year and say, shame on you, Kyrie, you can't play, you're out of your mind. They want to win a championship. To me, that's all what it's all about for them. It's business. They want to win the title. I personally am like, let's have him play half the games, see what happens. Maybe things change and he's allowed to come back. I, as a Nets fan, I'm loving it. I'm like, who cares if it's only half the games? I'm surprised by the amount of people that are like, this is wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. I mean, basically, they're playing by the rules. They changed their mind. I don't know why people are so shocked.
Bro, people just like to be shocked and outraged nowadays. That's part of it too. Mm-hmm. But they definitely have a point. I mean, in certain ways, I mean, you look at it from the take of people who are losing their jobs, like nurses in the city right now, who might be losing their jobs because, they're unwilling to get vaccinated, or anybody that works in the hospital or, medical facility, or the city in general. It's tough when you look at it in that scenario, but at the same time, I get it. Like Kyrie, if he can play outside of the city, if you can get away with that, if you can get away with him practicing, like, why not? Why not have him out there? I kind of thought that was going to be the thing from the beginning of the year, but the thing, I guess, most primal about this that I'm taking away is I have a feeling that Kyrie is going to be playing 100% of the games very, very soon. And I don't know, I don't have any government ties. I don't know anything about any of that crap. Okay. But
it's just breaking news for us. Yeah, right. Mandates
just
changing.
A hunch. Yeah. But I think, you see him getting the clear from the team to go on the road. I don't think they would do that unless they thought that he would be with the team 100% shortly after, or, whether that be shortly, like a month, shortly, like a couple weeks, whatever it be. That's my biggest takeaway from it. But people that are killing the Nets for doing this, it's a business. This whole world is a business. And if you don't like it, unfortunately, you have to live with it, because that's where we are.
Yeah, if the Knicks had Kevin Durant and James Harden, and then Kyrie Irving was in the same scenario, I find it a hard time to believe that Knicks fans would, or any fan would say, like, no, I don't want it. I don't want him back. We made our stance early. If you put yourself in like my shoes, you'd have a different feeling on it. And I totally agree with you on what you had said before about nurses and people working in hospitals. Yeah, it's completely understandable and feeling that sense. And then just seeing though that this is a business with basketball, and that is what it's about for these guys, and that's where it's moving. And it's going to be tricky, and it's a tricky situation, and there's going to be people upset as a lot of it has happened here. It's just mind blowing in all regards. Are you one of those Knicks fans that is it hard to see the Nets good? Is it annoying? You seem okay with it. Like there's like Alex hates the Nets now, and he didn't hate the Nets when they were in New Jersey because no one cared about them. What's your stance on the Nets now? As I like to say, they're not the Knicks, but they've come into the Knicks sandbox and like they've thrown sand at the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like they've kind of been annoying.
100%, bro. 100%. I get that. And I think I'm probably from the first generation of like people where my peers were becoming Nets fans because they moved to Brooklyn when I was in high school.
Interesting.
So a lot of kids that I went to school with that were from Brooklyn, they all became Nets fans. And you know what? Honestly, I don't have any problem with that. And if you were a Jersey Nets fan, you should be a Nets fan still, in my opinion. But I don't hate the Nets. There's no reason for me to hate the Nets. Not the little brother thing or any of that kind of stuff. Like, because I'm a Mets fan, I'm a Jets fan, so I'm definitely not somebody that looks down on you for rooting for whatever team, because I hate when people do that to me when I'm, being a Mets or Jets fan. But the thing that, sometimes can get me with the Nets is just the fact that you got the fans here, and some fans can be a little overbearing sometimes.
Yeah, let's name them. Who are they?
Not necessarily Twitter. I mean, when you're at the games.
Okay.
I was at a game when I was a little younger, a Knicks Nets game, and a little younger, probably like almost 10 years ago. It was J Kidd hit that 4-point play towards the end of the game to win.
Seriously, go fuck yourself. Oh my God.
Great.
I know the game you're talking about. Yeah,
but so me and this guy, I'm like probably 17, 18 at the time, whatever it was. And me and this guy starts like yelling at me. Nets fan, older guy. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like gets in my face. And then just like, we have a little confrontation. And then he starts screaming, like, oh, my son's here. How dare you? And I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah,
really?
right.
You're going to play that? Come on, get out of here. Like, get out of my face. And at that moment, I was like, all right, some people, and maybe just in all sports, but in that moment, I was like, F this. Fuck this guy.
Well, that was actually me. No, I'm just kidding. I can't go to a Nick game at Barclays. It gives me too much anxiety. It gives me anxiety to go to the game and then see Knicks fans there. And they're going to make noise. They're going to be present. It's New York. They're not, we're not playing in Utah. Like it's a 2-minute drive, whatever, it's accessible. Yes. It's easy. I get it. I can't go there and see Knicks fans in my building. It gives me too much anxiety where I can't handle it. I could go to the Garden because then that's the expectation is their home. I can't do it at Barclays. It would freak me out too much and give me too much depression.
That's always kind of been an interesting kind of case study. I feel like in general with the Nets is how is the fan base growing in terms of like, you see it when the Knicks come to play. Yeah. And I feel like, honestly though, bro, to your point, it's been a lot of Knicks fans, and it still is a majority. Maybe not a majority, but a lot of Knicks fans in Barclays for those games. But y'all are starting to get some people in the house, man, for real. Like the Nets fan base is growing, and I say like, oh, I don't have any animosity, any hatred towards the Nets. That's right now. Maybe in 10 years, 15 years, when there's a lot more fans around, and I know some people like to say that the Nets don't have any fans or nobody's going to be a fan of the Nets, but I could tell you personally, being 26 years old and being in high school when the Nets moved to Brooklyn, that a lot of people became Nets fans. And when they're 30 and 40 and they have kids, there's going to be other Nets fans. And it's just going to keep growing like that. And when that day comes, it is going to be a rivalry. Then maybe we could revisit that conversation and I could talk about that. But bro,
well, it is a slow burn. I have to explain to people, like, people make fun of the Nets, the amount of Knicks fans. And I'm saying, if you heard what it was like in Continental Airlines Arena, I mean, I told you, like, I have serious anxiety over this because I would go with my dad and we would hear these Knicks fans around us who know basketball better than every other fan base. And they're telling you all these things and you're hearing them. And it was cringeworthy for me. So I even have to explain when there's all these people yelling, like, for the Nets and like, oh, there's no Net fans. There's no one here. I'm going, I think there's a lot of Net fans here. If you know where we started from, this seems pretty good. And that sort of surprised me. So it was kind of cool to, kind of hear you say that. And yeah, it takes time. But that's why I think for the Nets, it's so important right now for them to win a championship, because they have a roster that they're never going to really kind of have again, or at least for whatever the foreseeable future. They've got to take advantage of this, or it's a really huge lost opportunity.
Bro, I mean, you said it right there. They have a roster right now that who knows if they will ever have a roster like this again. Probably not. Not many teams in the league ever get a roster like this.
Exactly.
Like three arguably three of the top 10 players in the league, potentially 2 of the top 5. And I mean, they work together in beauty. Like when they played together last year, they didn't get a ton to go. And I mean, there's probably a lot of Knicks fans out there listening to me going like, why is this guy waxing poetic? I do a lot of Nets games for work. So I've watched them a lot. I see them a lot.
Yeah.
And I do want them to do well because it helps me out, work wise.
Sure.
But I do think that if they don't win this year, it's going to be a massive, massive disappointment for y'all. That's just a fact of it. And I don't know. I mean, how many more years do you think that they possibly can run it back with this group, especially with the type of dynamics you got in terms of Kyrie, in terms of Harden, when his weight fluctuation, and who knows where he'll be in another year or two physically. But right now is when you got to hit it. When the East is, getting better, but it's still not there. There's really not a team that should be able to contend with you right now. Maybe
Bucks.
Milwaukee.
Bucks are better. Bucks are better to me. You got
Kyrie.
Not if you got Kyrie. That changes everything. If Kyrie's there, it changes everything. But I respect the Bucks. They did win the championship last year. I get they beat the Nets, but what had happened with injuries, but they had to overcome the Nets. They had to get through that process, and they had to get through those losing rounds. And now you've got a confident Giannis, Chris Middleton, who to me is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. They are a champion, and I think that confidence goes a long way. If Kyrie's there and they're in sync, then you're just at a talent level that's a different dynamic. But again, who knows what's going to happen there? So it's scary. But that's why for me, I haven't even this whole season has not been a joy. It really hasn't. And now it's getting to a different world. But the only games I enjoyed were the ones that were, and I shouldn't say and didn't enjoy, but it's a relief when they win because they're supposed to. But it was the Toronto game, and it was not the Orlando game. They lost that one, but it was the Toronto game and the Philly game where they were missing everybody, had Durant and played with him. And it was like no expectations, changed everything. And that's kind of like where the Knicks are in a weird sense. Is last year, no expectations. This came out of nowhere. This year, expectations falling short. And that, I think, as a Knicks fan, has really led to some of this, like, damn, they're 13-17. I thought we'd be one of those teams fighting to be in a home court advantage. Like, I thought we'd be the Bulls, basically.
Yeah, I guess maybe I had more realistic or tempered down expectations of the season. I was thinking 6th or 7th seed, at best kind of a thing in that ballpark, just kind of get into the playoffs, keep this in a positive direction, finish above 500 and keep moving in the right way, because this year was always, in my eyes, going to be a little disappointing. Like the best case scenario for me was getting to the second round of the playoffs. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I wanted. That was it. But now I'm looking at it, and I had my doubts about Fournier coming in, and I got to be honest. Yeah, I just, especially coming with Kemba and just basically bringing that backcourt down from Boston from last year. I wasn't a huge fan of that. But Fournier in general, he's not what Reggie Bullock was. Reggie Bullock was a dude who could legitimately play perimeter defense, which you can't say at all for Evan Fournier. The guy gets a couple steals here and there. Every once in a while, he'll turn it up a little bit, but he just gives you no consistency. And then you talk about Kemba out there, and I love Kemba. Kemba's a New York man from the Bronx. Gotta give him that love, but he's just not doing it right now. And I think that he should be getting burned. Like, I don't think he should be sitting on the bench, getting 0 minutes a game. But signing him to potentially be a starter and not really having a backup plan, it's kind of putting us in a bad position. And you could get away with splitting the minutes between him and Rose, but Doesn't seem like that's anything that Thibs wants to do right now. And if you're not gonna change that, and you're not gonna try to get Kemba into the ball game as much as you can, use him as a sixth man, use him as a scoring guy. It's a waste. And I don't know if you could trade him either. I don't know who would want him unless you can get him out on the court and show what he can do. Because I mean, he dropped 29 the other night. You see that he still has game. Get him out there, see if he can help you. And if he can't, then you trade him. But right now, I definitely am more down on Fournier than I am Kemba. And I can't believe that Fournier was really the guy that they decided to sign.
Yeah, Fournier is an interesting one. I mean, when he was with the Magic, and I can only speak for when they played the Nets. I'm not watching Orlando Magic basketball. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't on League Pass going, oh, we got to watch the Magic tonight, honey. That didn't happen. But anytime they played the Nets, I was like, Fournier fucking killed them. He always had these massive games, didn't miss shots. And it's, every team has a guy. Like, there's guys that you're always like, man, they're not that great, but for whatever reason, when they play my team, they just turn it on.
Kick the shit out of us.
Kick the shit out of them. This was one of those guys. And I am like pretty stunned to see his fall with the Knicks. Like, to see him struggle offensively. He did have a good game the other night, but be massively inconsistent offensively. The terrible defense. I mean, it's alarming, especially I know it's just one game, but it'll stand out. And now it's funny because when the season started, you loved the Evan Fournier game. It was like, we're here. He beat his former team. Now it's like a reminder of what you don't have because of how well he played. And I'm just in shock with how he went from a guy that's not an all-star, but could put up points, part of a core team roster that can build, to somebody that's now a liability and is getting DNPs in fourth quarters is stunning. I mean, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, when you sign this guy, you're expecting him to basically just take over the yeoman's role in terms of getting the minutes at that starting two position. But he's completely gotten outplayed, in my opinion, by Quickly, who hasn't been great. I mean, in terms of his consistency throughout the year, he's starting to really make some moves right now, IQ. But Fournier, you're right. When he was with Orlando, put up buckets. When he was with Boston, he could score, but you started to see some of the flaws in his game, I felt. And now they're just completely just blown out of proportion. I don't know if that's working with Thibs, and I've got some thoughts on Thibs too.
Yes.
That, I mean, listen, like we can get to that, but
let's tib it up. Let's hear let's skip the appetizer. I want the tib entree.
All right. Well, yeah, but Fournier, I don't know what his deal is, man. I don't know if it's part of the coaching with Thibodeau or whatnot, but yeah, he's trash right now, and I feel awful about that signing. I don't know what the heck they could do about that. But like you said, to get to Thibs, I mean, there have to be questions about him. I still, like, listen, I'm not calling for his job or anything crazy. Like, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, people. Sure. If you're reacting to this thing and like, oh my, how could you ever, bitch and moan about Thibodeau? Yeah, you can, because he's doing a terrible job right now. And you look at his track record. How long has he been in places? 6 years, 3 years. What is this tenure going to be? And I look at that trend, and it starts to show me that, yeah, that first year you do really good. You get into the playoffs, you make a little something happen. In Chicago's case, they made it a couple of years, but when you have Derrick Rose in his prime like that in that roster, it makes it a lot easier. But Minnesota, Karl Anthony Towns loses him. D'Angelo Russell loses him. Jimmy Butler's the only guy who's enjoying him, or not D'Lo. He wasn't there yet. It was Andrew Wiggins.
Yep.
Loses him. And then you have Jimmy Butler there dogging people out in practice, making people, like, embarrassing people in practice. That was the reports that were coming out. And you have to assume that's a Thibodeau kind of thing. That's him telling him, yo, go out here and embarrass these guys, get them to wake up. And today you just can't do that. And for most players, you just can't do that. Like, you can't just go out there and have them be embarrassed and look like a bunch of schmucks. They're not going to appreciate that. They're not going to like you showing them up. In life, most people don't like that. And if Thibs is really going out here right now and trying to force these guys to continue to push a square peg in a round hole, like I think that he's doing, because I think that's who he is, then he's just going to lose these dudes by the end of the year. And once you lose this locker room, it's going to be over. And I have a really bad feeling that he's losing this locker room slowly but surely. I mean, you're always going to have the players respect, so they might like him as a guy, but they might not be buying what he's saying. And this is like a weird little analogy, but it's kind of like a college coach to me. Like your message can only get across for so long. And especially when you look at college basketball today with one and dones, I mean, it might look like, his message got through for a year, maybe a little bit longer, but now it's starting to wear thin.
It's wild how fast things can change too, right? Last year, lovable Knicks, hustled, did everything right, overachievers, great locker room, great chemistry. And it does feel as if there's something that's not clicking right and that it might be trending in that direction that you brought up. And another part of that to me is I look at it from the outside and I see it feels like there's two Knicks teams on that are in play here. You got the young group, you got a young core. We could go that route and develop these younger guys and see where they go. But then at the same time, you've got Julius Randle and you're trying to win now and force things. And it's almost like the Knicks just need to pick a direction and go one way. Let's just go full rebuild with the young dudes and see what happens. Like to me, you tell me this, how is Obi Toppin? And I know he's been out, but how is he only getting 15 to 18 minutes a game? Now, I'm not saying Obi Toppin's going to be the next, who knows, but at least you can at least find out. And he gives an energy. He gives a spark. There's a tenacity there when he's on the court. You can feel it. It's tangible, but he only plays 15 to 18 minutes. That has to be infuriating for you and for all of the other Knicks fans that are listening.
It's classic Thibs, though. That's what he does. He doesn't like playing these young dudes a ton of minutes. But when we're looking at this team right now and you see Fournier struggling and you see, I guess just a plethora of injuries that have been hitting our center position, it's hard to believe that they haven't at least thought about or tried using Obi at the center to start a game or to start the second half or to, go down the stretch run with Julius with that starting rotation. And to not do that, it just kills me because it's just it feels like it's so obvious, but it's just not being done for whatever reason, whether that be he doesn't view Obi as a center or whatever. And listen, Obi's got to do a couple of things before he's really, really in that echelon to be a legitimate guy, but he's getting there. If he can get a shot, his shot is broken right now. Like it's not a great 3-point shot. But if he can get that going, like this dude is going to be putting up in 15 minutes that Thibs gives him. Right. He's going to be putting up 15 points. And I don't know how you keep that guy on the bench. I don't understand it. I probably never will. And I hope that I don't have to anymore because he's starting or he's just getting, 25, 30 minutes off the bench. Because if not, bro, I don't want to speak for all Knicks fans, but we're going to be pissed off if he's still sitting there come April and we're not in the playoff mix. I should take that back. Not in the playoff mix, not in the top 4 mix, because if we're in the playoff mix in that 7, 8, 6 range, there's no reason Obi Toppin still shouldn't be getting big minutes.
Yeah, I don't think the Knicks expected Julius Randle to have the season he did last year, and the plan was to give Obi more minutes. Then Julius Randle came out. He's all NBA second team. He's doing everything right. He's making threes. He's getting to the basket. He's rebounding. So it was like, all right, well, we can't really play Obi Toppin now because Julius Randle's having a career year. Let's fast forward to this season. Randle's regressed. He's been much more inconsistent. And now it's like, well, we want to play Obi more, but we've given all this money and this time and effort to Julius Randle. What the fuck do we do? And that's where it kind of is. And sometimes it's as simple as it's hard to make tough decisions. And I think for the Knicks, it's like they don't feel comfortable playing them together because of defense. And the tough decision is, well, Randle earned this contract. Obi's going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, bro. Dude, it's going to be a tough decision. And I think it ultimately comes down to trading one of the two. I think one of those guys, I would be blown away if they're both here next season. You're probably not going to do anything mid-season here that'd be too drastic and probably too stupid, in my opinion. But this offseason, you have to move one of them because they both can't be here. I don't think they're the two best players on the team, but they're two of your most talented guys. They're two guys who deserve to be getting, 25 plus minutes a game. whether you think Julius sucks or not right now, the guy is still worthy of getting that time. He's still doing enough to be out there. Like, and Obi's that X factor. Obi's that spark plug. He's that dude that can do a lot of the, fun type of crowd engaging parts of the game, whereas Julius kind of is more mundane and does the, gets to 10 rebounds, gets you like 5 assists throughout the game, scores a bunch of points that you don't really care about because they're just very low key, barreling your way to the basket, kind of, in the post moves, hitting a little shot, but it's not flashy. It's not as flashy as, a nice little alley-oop from half court, but it does the job. And you have to figure out, what do you want? What do you want in that position? Is it going to be the guy who can get the crowd going? Do you need that dude there? Or do you need it to be Julius, who's going to get you the 19, 20 points a game? And that's what you need to expect with him. That's the mindset you need to have, is 19, 20 points a game, about 10 boards, 5 assists. If you kind of come out and expect that, then that's not a bad player. That's a guy who gets the job done. He just might not be the guy who can carry your team. You need to decide which one of those guys, as the 3rd or 4th best player on your team, fits the best. And right now there isn't a 1 or a 2 in front of them. But if you can find a 1 or a 2 to go in front of them, then that's a decision that needs to be made. But regardless, one of those guys has to be out at the end of the year. And I think they are going to get a superstar in here, because this is a disaster. And there's no way being a Knicks fan for this long, knowing the James Dolan kind of antsiness, that he's not going to want to go out and be like, oh, just get me somebody, just get me anybody that's available. I think that's going to happen. And unfortunately for us, it might come at the cost of a lot of these young guys. And, that it is what it is.
Speaking of fan engagement, and we'll end here with a little positivity. You were in Atlanta, and explain this story. You met the Hawks, like, owners, the owner of the Hawks owner's wife. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, Boomer's friend, Boomer Esiason, of course, his buddy was very, very kind, helped me out, got me tickets to the game, got me some passes to go into the owner's suite of the second game. So that was game 4. So at halftime, we go in there at halftime, walk in, order drinks at the bar, me and my friend. I'm wearing a Knicks shirt. Everybody else is kind of like, they got shirt and ties, or maybe they got a, Hawks pullover on or something. Grant Hill walks in, comes over, daps me up, was like staring me down the whole time. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Like, yo, what's good, Grant? What, you got something? You got something to say, man? Not that I would take Grant Hill. He'd whip my ass. But, I mean, that was kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
And then 2 seconds later, I see this lady come over to me, and she starts talking, and she's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, who? I was like, I'm I don't want to say the guy's name, but I'm blah, blah's, guest. And she was like, well, I say who comes in here. I say who doesn't come in here. And you need to leave. And I laughed. I laughed in the woman's face. I was like, like, oh yeah, it's a good joke.
You thought she was just being sarcastic and just being silly, not being literal.
Yeah, and she was dead serious. Like, I've never seen anybody more serious in my life. Her face, when I started laughing, went to this stone. Like, she wanted to kill me. I was like, whoa. And then she goes, no, I'm not joking. You need to leave. And I was like, huh? Like, then I was like, huh?
Right, you're just minding your own business. You're not acting out or being annoying.
No,
you're just hanging out,
having a drink. I didn't even get my drink yet.
That sucks.
I'm still waiting. But then she's like, you need to go right now. I was like, is it okay if I get my drink? She says like 4 more times. And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go.
You can get out of here.
Yeah, I'm gonna get out. I don't want to get tossed from the game at halftime and have that be the story. And potentially hurt somebody's whatever's going on behind the scenes. But that was a hell of an experience. And after the fact, I mean, we found out that the owner of the Hawks' wife was the actress Jamie Gertz, who I wasn't too familiar with at the time. But then I looked into her work and I was like, oh, okay. I see that. And I started dying. I thought that was hilarious.
That
but,
is amazing.
Maybe one day in the future we can get her on the fan and we can clear up the beef.
Have you tried that? I'm sure Greg thought we got to try to get her on or something. Has there been an effort for that? Not that you would do it.
I would assume they had to have tried to do that, especially with everything that was going on at that time last year. I would have to think they definitely went for it, but no shot that she wanted to come on and address that. No way.
So you guys are not hanging out for Knicks Hawks on Christmas Day. That's not happening.
And we might. I mean, she's going to be in my house. I'm a little bit more receptive. I'm a little bit more cordial. So maybe I'll let her, hang out in the section for a little bit if she's sitting up there and, the Chase Bridge. But, I got to respect it to a degree. But at the same time, like, that shows me where your fan base is right now as well. That you're that kind of, but I'm not going to get to, I don't want to offend anybody.
How many beers did you have overall, do you think, in that Atlanta trip?
The whole trip?
Yeah.
45 to 50 over 3 days.
Yeah, that's not bad. Well,
not bad. Throwing a couple shots, throwing a couple Long Island iced teas. You know what it is.
That's cool. It was fun. What is your handle on Twitter again for people that want to enjoy your content and follow you? I know I did when you were in Atlanta through Boomer and all the fan stuff. It was really fun and entertaining.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, if you guys want to follow me on the Twitter machine, hit me up at Zoobeard77. I love interacting with people on there. I mean, some people can be, as we all know, assholes, but for the most part, we got good people on the Twitter machine. I would say over 95% of the people are good people, and I love talking back and forth. Hit me up on the Knicks stuff. I mean, listen, if you want to get down with the Nets, you better bring the heat, but any Knicks type of stuff, we out here. And I do have faith in this team going forward. I don't know if it's going to be a great rest of the season. I don't know if it's going to be, last year, but I have faith that this team is going to get themselves into the playoffs one way or another. What's
giving you more agita and what pisses you off more? The Knicks shit start or the Jets season?
Oh man, bro, that's a fucking question. Wow. I mean, on one hand, the expectations of, potentially making a run with the Knicks is there. But I got to say the Jets, man. It's tough, but I have to say the Jets. Like, this team is just so, like, the Knicks are bad. Don't get me wrong, but you could see what's wrong with them, and it's stuff that could be fixable or it could have been avoided. With the Jets, they just suck. They're just a terrible team filled with dudes like on defensively. Listen, these guys might be practice squad dudes. They might be guys who could fill out your roster if a couple of guys get, sick or hurt. But these guys aren't starters in the league. I mean, Bryce Hall is a good player in the secondary. The rest of his defense outside of Mosley and Quentin Williams sucks. None of them should be in the NFL. And I don't know how Joe Douglas, I don't know how, Robert Saleh or anybody looked at this group and said to themselves, top to bottom, listen, I get starters get hurt. It is what it is. But who the hell put these guys as the backups? Because none of them should be in the league. None of them should be getting the burn that they're getting. But they are. And I'm supposed to sit here and say to myself, this is a building year. This is a year where we're getting better. And how? How are we getting better? Because I'm looking at these dudes and I don't expect to see Javelin Guidry out there again next year. You know what I mean? I don't expect to see Ashton Davis's bum ass running out there again next year. And listen, Ashton Davis might be a great guy, but he's a terrible football player for the Jets right now. And I can't take that anymore. And the offense, it is what it is. That's really all you can say about it. I don't know what the hell Zach Wilson is. I think he can still get better. He's got ridiculous arm strength and can sling that rock like a fucking, I don't even know when he's on his back foot. I've never seen anything like it. But if he can't hit these short throws and they can't figure out, from Mike LaFleur down to the bottom of the, depth chart, how to keep this thing rolling for 4 quarters and not just 3 drives in a row or 2 drives in a row, then, again, I don't know what I'm watching. Like, I'm supposed to be seeing progression. As a fan of a terrible team in a terrible year, You're supposed to see the progression of these young guys or just a group at the core overall. And there is no core, at least defensively. And there has definitely been no progression, in my opinion, outside of one or two players at most. And that's just disgusting to me, because this is going to be the same story next year. And I'm going to have to hear from the same people about how I need to be patient. And I can't, bro. I fucking can't.
If you want more Jet rants like this, definitely check out Big Zoo's podcast. Give it a listen, because I can hear that Jets passion. I can hear that Jets anger, and I can hear how much you love the team and how frustrated you are. And, you know, when I'm a Giants fan, so they suck. But when I hear you talk about the Jets like that, I kind of sympathize. When I hear you talk about the Knicks and how frustrated you are on them, I get joy. And I'd be lying. I'd be lying if I didn't. I love your misery with the Knicks. I love how poor they have played. So it was entertaining. It was fun. Big Zoo, thank you for co-hosting, coming on Bad Weather Fans, and doing a much better job than Alex. So that was fantastic. And he knows it. He'll know it. And he'll come on and be the Julius Randle apologist. He can't help himself, but he's not here right now. He's in Maui. So there's nothing he can do about it.
Hey, getting that Maui Wowie, man. I understand how it is out there. Alex, hope you enjoy that, man. Thank you for letting me sit in for you. Mike, bro, always appreciate you, man. Anytime we get an opportunity to talk, I always love it, and I miss you, bro. I definitely hope we can, maybe do this again in the future. But yeah, it's a hell of a time, man. Thank you for thinking of me, and thank you for having me on. Love the pod, by the way, and I love listening to it. So I can't wait to hear myself back.
All right, cool. That's not narcissistic at all. So good stuff, Big Zoo. Appreciate it. This has been episode number 96 of Bad Weather Fans. Guys, don't forget you can check out the YouTube version. Go ahead, watch it. Tweet us where you are watching this video. Let me know at Mike Delivers Pod, and it's at Nick Central. You can check that out. We always love to see where people are watching. Go ahead, subscribe, download, all that good stuff if you're listening on Apple and Spotify. This has been Bad Weather Fans, episode number 96. We'll reference again. We did record this before the Knicks versus Pistons, so maybe Kemba Walker goes out and puts up 86, and we look like fools. If that did happen, we do apologize. But thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.